am Bob Geller, your host. Welcome to this episode of PR Done and Dunner. Today we'll be taking a deep dive into something that many are buzzing about, namely ChatGPT. Is it a threat? Is it an opportunity for creative and knowledge-driven fields? To get answers, I've invited some experts, including two tech PR specialists. And just in case you're getting tired of hearing from us PR types, we invited a ringer, a true AI wonk innovator and entrepreneur to help us understand what's happening and where things are going. So why don't I pause for a second, stop here, and ask the panel to introduce themselves. And we'll start with our special guest, Stefano.
Thank you, Bob. It's a pleasure to be
Welcome.
here today. Thank you. Thank you. I'm Stefano Pacifico. I'm co-founder and CEO of Epistemic AI, the next generation search engine for the life sciences. My background is in artificial intelligence and machine learning and natural language processing. And I've been here in the States 16 years longer than I thought I would when I came from Italy for a master's in computer science at Columbia University. Most of my career has revolved around helping people making better decisions by using all the information and knowledge available to them. And together with my co-founder, David Heger, a renowned professor from NYU, we're bringing this technology to the life sciences, where we accelerate science by giving people access to amounts of knowledge they never had access before at a fraction of the time and cost that it would normally take.
Excellent. And in the course of this discussion, we'll hear more about what you and the company are doing and implications of AI and ChatGPT for your space. I should say, I'm glad to call Stefano a friend, and we've collaborated over the years on a number of things. It's great to have you join us and for you to be on board with this podcast. And why don't we go to Diana from the Fusion PR side?
Sure. Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Diana Bost. I'm an account director at Fusion PR. I specialize in AI, technology, fintech, working across crypto, blockchain. So happy to be here.
Excellent. And Mark?
Mark Prindle. I'm also with Fusion PR. Do a lot of cybersecurity accounts, but Diana introduced me to ChatGPT shortly after it came out, and it's definitely a good topic.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's amazing the waves it's made in the short time it's been around. I mean, in fact, Diana was the first person on the Fusion PR team to call our attention to it as soon as ChatGPT was came out late last year, and I think she spent the whole weekend messing around with it, and she let the team know how cool, interesting, and different it was. And I think some were skeptical, including myself, until we had a chance to give it a shot. And I recall thinking at some point, she's right. This is pretty cool, and this kind of changes everything. Since then, there's been a lot of hype, some skepticism, and attempts to use it for real work. And we've seen some vendor jockeying in the AI field. So I guess it's still early days, but a good time to take stock of where we are now and where it's going. And why don't we turn to Stefano, and just for an explanation, how would you describe ChatGPT and related technologies? How do they fit to the AI landscape?
But ChatGPT is the kind of technology that in essence has existed for a long time. These things are called language models. You can think of a language model as, think about yourself immersed in a new language that you never heard before. And little by little, you start hearing a sound. And then little by little, you hear that after that sound, there's another sound that comes after. And so you start replicating that sound, and you understand that when you say that sound, say a word, then another word comes after, and then another word comes after. And that's basically what a language model does. It looks at all the words and how they come after each other, and little by little learns how to put them one after the other. And then what it does, it basically starts pulling out of the head. What word will I emit next? Will it be this or will it be that? That's a very simple explanation, very simplistic. I'm obviously glossing over a lot of details. And, these GPT technologies are essentially, in their core and their essence, language models that are using this transformer architecture, which is revolutionary architecture of deep learning that has enabled so many advances. that has made them very effective at reconstructing language that makes sense in the context, makes sense grammatically, linguistically, and even sort of displays some form of coherency and meaning with respect to the task at hand or the context at hand. So if I were to say it in other words, they're masterful parrots. It's like having, your 6-year-old hearing you talk about, entrepreneurship, true story, and then repeating some of those things to their friends. And sometimes they make sense, sometimes they make a little less sense. But that's what it is. And it's amazing.
It really is. I mean, you mentioned that it's been around, technology like this has been around for a long time. Were you surprised when OpenAI came out with it?
Well, OpenAI started with GPT-1, which didn't have the one after the name. When GPT-2 came out, that was another big, sort of improvement that was demonstrated. I would say that, OpenAI, to their credit, not only did a masterful job technologically, but maybe technologically speaking, they're not that far away, say, from what Google has, where some of this technology were really created from scratch. But I think they did a masterful job in bringing this technology alive for everybody and making everybody understand what they can do and they can't do. In some sense, making it more open, as their name says, even though maybe in a different way that they originally anticipated.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wrote in a blog post that it's kind of the perfect PR vehicle, because in an era when people are kind of skeptical about tech, it's hard to get people impressed. They release something that really is impressive and that engages people and that people want to share their experiences. So of course it's going to get a ton of buzz. I guess it begs the question, do you use related technology? Is there any immediate impact on your space, Stefano?
Well, about a 3 months ago, I don't remember exactly, there was this model that's kind of like a GPT model. It's called Galactica, that came out of Facebook. This Galactica model was trained on scientific texts. So, it was put out for people to try it. It got a lot of backlash, I think maybe a little unfairly under certain, respects, compared, say, to GPT technologies. I think that the demonstration was that if we think of these models as a true thought partner that can really provide you with information you didn't have before, that's a mistake. They are not going to work that way. These models today, currently, they don't have reliable knowledge inside them such that they can discriminate and tell you what they know for sure, and what they don't know. And so you may end up like in the case of Galactica, where people were trying to create biomedical texts, for example, and the model was spewing a lot of inaccuracies. Now, the opportunity instead lies into using the linguistic power of these models to absolve linguistic tasks that were impossible before. They're wonderful to help you draft something. They're wonderful to help you, say, break writer's block. They're wonderful to implement natural language processing, maybe at a much higher cost, but that before would have required a team of 7 people to implement. And now you can just provide a couple of examples and they'll do that task for you. Translation, generation of code. I mean, it's truly marvelous what they can do, but what they can't do is essentially replace a domain expert in any specific domain yet. And this is what an important area of innovation for us. Epistemic AI has built the largest knowledge graph in the biomedical industry, with more than 6 billion nodes and 20 billion entities, 20 billion edges. And so we believe that the next frontier of this model is taking these models and making them work with a source of truth, like it can be our knowledge graph that we have assembled from hundreds of different biomedical sources, such that at every turn, this model can tell you, I'm saying this because I read it here. I'm saying that because this database says that. And we believe that that's the next generation of models that's going to come up. And we believe that we're going to create that for the biomedical industry.
Is it a different form of AI? Is it not deep learning? Is it, does it employ different AI methods or?
Well, there is always a question of what is AI and what not, what is not AI. I think there were some jokes around the fact that, when there is some technology for it, it's not anymore AI. But anyway, the general gist is that these deep learning frameworks with transformer models are certainly here to stay. How they're going to evolve and how they're going to connect with other areas of artificial intelligence that are, related, like graph analysis and graph knowledge representation, that remains to be seen. But it's certainly an exciting, very, very exciting time in the, almost 15 years I've been in the world of AI.
That's great. And bringing it back to, I guess, today's business and communications issues, Diana and Mark, I'd like to ask, I know you've kicked the tires a bit and maybe even used it in your actual assignments. And it'd be great to hear your experiences and how it's helped, if it's caused any problems.
Yeah, I think that this kind of sparks an interesting discussion that we've had as a team also about plagiarism, and if utilizing generative AI or something like ChatGPT would be considered plagiarizing. And a lot of people had different thoughts, but in my opinion, I utilize this all the time. I actually just yesterday bought the paid version of it because I was on the waiting list and I got the notification, and now I have access.
What do you get with the paid version? Just out of curiosity.
I mean, as far as I know, it's essentially the same, but there's no downtime. So often, if there's too many users on it, you would get booted off, but I have access to it now 24/7. And also, I did notice that it seems to be more up to date on current events. I don't know if this is for the paid version only or if they did an upgrade, but previously it was only trained on information up to 2021, as far as I know. And it seems to now be a little bit more in tune with things that have happened recently. For example, I was utilizing it for a client, just trying to do some background research, and it was talking about the collapse of FTX, which happened a couple months ago. So yeah, so I'm not sure
What did it help?
exactly.
How did it help there? Did it help there?
Yeah, so basically, I was trying to formulate like a question and answer prompt for a client, right? And that's a very simple task, and it is something that could be done pretty quickly. But I just wanted to see what it would come out with. Mostly, I use it for fun. Mark and I have talked about this at length. We certainly wouldn't just copy and paste something that it gives us and hand to a client. I think that's very irresponsible. But I just wanted to see what would happen. And so I put in my client information, some notes, and it spit me out a bunch of questions and answers that were pretty accurate and pretty relevant to what I needed in the first place. And then, of course, I just edited through and put my own tweaks and information into it. And it saved me, at least 30 minutes, I would say.
That's great. And Mark, what's been your experience?
Well, Diana's the one who gave me the idea of if you've got a bylined article and you can't think of a pithy title for it, you can just put the whole thing into ChatGPT and it'll spit out several different ones for you to choose from. And if you don't like them, you can say, could you make them a little more playful? And then it comes out with some more. So that kind of thing is very helpful, as Stefano mentioned, in terms of if you're having writer's block or that sort of thing. But I have definitely encountered. Now, my situation was I used to be kind of an amateur music journalist. So for a while on ChatGPT, and I don't know if this works anymore, but the one time I checked, I asked it about myself, and it gave me a paragraph that was maybe 70% correct. But instead of just saying it didn't know the rest, it would just make stuff up. Like it made up 3 or 4 different birthplaces. I tried a few different times and it made up 3 or 4 different birthplaces and birthdays. And that really bothered me. It just made me
Was it a
think,
better
wow,
story?
if it's no, if it's lying, if it's not telling the truth about me, what else is it going to be spewing, untruths about? So that's when I realized for sure that I can't rely on it. I mean, you can ask it questions like, what is like Diana and I asked it a stock question once. There was a term we didn't understand. Could you put this in layman's terms? And it put it in layman's terms, but now I don't know if it was accurate. I mean, you have to kind of check everything. It's
Sounds
kind of
like it sounds
Yeah.
like George Santos' dream.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. You can't. So maybe it's like early days of Wikipedia when you couldn't really trust Wikipedia because you thought people could be up there changing everything, making stuff up all the time. Whereas now, if you try to do that, it's usually taken down very quickly.
And I think it also kind of circles back to the aspect of, is this plagiarism? Because it might not be truthful, first of all. So I think it's always important, especially in PR, or if you're using this for schoolwork, anything content related, you need to ensure that you are fact checking this, and you are also, changing it up a bit, because sometimes it's going to give you, I wouldn't say it's going to give you sentences that aren't structured grammatically correct, but it's going to kind of sound weird occasionally. So I think it's really important to always review what you're getting from it. But also, I will say that Mark and I did try to see if we asked it, the same exact question, but asked for an original response. So, for example, can you give me a quote, talking about XYZ? And I sent that exact prompt in, and it gave me a quote. And then Mark did, and it gave a different quote. I mean, it was essentially the same meaning, but it was original content.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I've personally used it for a new business, developing a proposal. I was trying to research areas and pricing for some kind of content I was pitching. It seemed kind of helpful there. Again, you don't know if you can trust the data or to what extent, but it's another variable to consider. I think it could be helpful. We're in the technology PR business. Sometimes we're working in very highly technical areas. We're handed a new esoteric area of tech. We have to quickly get our arms around it and understand it. So maybe helping teams research and understand certain areas, it could maybe be helpful there. Um, but there's the other side of it. And as I understand it, and by the way, I heard this on the Ezra Klein podcast, which is a really cool dialogue he had with Gary Marcus. I don't know if you've heard of him, Stefano, but he's a professor at NYU, cognitive scientist and author. And
I know Gary. I know Gary
oh,
well.
you do know Gary.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
he's supposed to be like an AI skeptic, right?
No, well, I wouldn't call him a skeptic. I think he has a vision that he's been, talking about for many years about what are the other things in artificial intelligence that attention should be put on, and he's been sort of relentless in that. I think he might have been surprised as well by the speed at which certain technologies have matured, but I also think that some of the points he's made all along has still remained true, and some of the field has converged to that. Like, for example, the fact that essentially there isn't much of a real reasoning ability, that is necessary for having an artificial general intelligence. I think his view is more about, his views are more about how do you develop an AGI and whether we're working in the right direction to get there. So I wouldn't call him a skeptic. I would call him a somebody with a very clear vision of what he thinks the right direction is.
No, I'm glad to hear you say that, and I know he's been kind of categorized that way. He didn't clearly from the podcast. He didn't like to be called a skeptic.
Yeah,
He's been
I think he doesn't shy away from
controversy.
Controversy. Yeah, I think he maybe rebels a little bit in it.
Well, he shared how he got into it over Twitter with Sam Altman. Is it Sam Altman of OpenAI? And they had some disagreements, but I think Sam ultimately, came around to his point of view. But things I heard on that podcast were basically that ChatGPT is what they call a pastiche machine. It's cutting and pasting, copying and pasting from the web. It doesn't know anything about truth or reasoning, as you said, Stefano. So you have to take everything it spits back at you with a huge grain of salt. And what's more, Ezra said that it drives the cost of bullshit to zero. So it makes it very easy to create sketchy content. So you have to be very careful of that. In fact, one thing I blogged about was that, you can have ChatGPT writing PR pitches, press releases, probably writing news articles. Do you need real people for any of these things? Are we going to that point where you'll have PR bots pitching PR AI journalists? I don't know. And then CDEC got flagged for posting an article from, I think, a ChatGPT like AI that was inaccurate. So I don't know. I mean, I guess it's cool to be excited about it, but I guess the question it poses is, what does it really mean for AI? Is it a tremendous step forward? Where's AI going? How far are we from GAI? A lot of questions. It's upsetting the vendor landscape right now. As you said, Stefano, it really isn't having too much of an impact on your space now, would you say?
I'm saying that the conversational nature of it is not a reliable aspect of, it can't be just used. These models can't just be used in a completely unconstrained way and be effective in our space. Like you said, these models repeat what they, as we opened with this description of a language model, it detects patterns in text and just repeats these patterns. And now they become very, very good at repeating these patterns and maybe altering them and adjusting them in ways that is more credible. But we have no idea and cannot know unless you know a priori whether what they're saying is true or not. So if you are in a creative space, that is absolutely fine. If you're looking for inspiration about something, that's great because it's just an idea. If you're trying to save the life of a patient, you don't want this. Let me give you an example. When I work with Cincinnati Children's, right, through Epistemic AI, their researchers are not at all interested in being fed any information that could be wrong. The cost of that is not only time lost, could be potential, harm to people. So we need to be careful about that. I have a son. Go ahead, Bob. Oh, okay.
You got it.
I have a son that is 3-year-old now, and about 2 years ago was diagnosed with an extremely rare cancer called malignant ectomesenchyma. I cannot fathom how I would react if I saw any of the researchers and clinical researchers and doctors that followed him make decisions or be inspired about the treatments based on what a ChatGPT model would tell them. That would be a disaster. So I think that the concerns are real. And that's why, I think that the unconstrained use of these models in many expert domain settings is not yet feasible. That said, there are many ways in which it can be used that are actually useful. We already are integrating some of these models in our platform. We have been integrating them before they were famous, except nobody really cared. Now, we can say it a little bit more out loud. We're already integrating them, and they allow us to have smoother interactions, more interesting patterns of interactions, better technology. So that's all great. But they need to be, channeled very precisely. And the last comment I have, because you brought up Ezra Klein's article, this problem about essentially made up information, truthfulness, veracity of things is not novel. It's been a long time coming. There's going to be massive advances in the recreation of videos. And, we've seen already like the harm it can be done when text is, generated or written even just in a false manner. Fooling hundreds of thousands of years of evolution that are ingrained in our eyes is going to be a lot easier.
I can imagine. A lot
easier. Yeah.
How far off do you think we are from generalized AI?
Oh, that's a question that, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. We don't know. I think the field cannot even completely agree on what are the things that are missing. So you have, Gary Marcus saying something, you have Jan LeCun saying something, but maybe it's something slightly different, and maybe it was more different before. I think everybody's got a lot of ideas. It's an open research problem. I think we just need to keep going.
Yeah.
We don't know. And
And
also, what does it even, can we give a precise definition on what that means and all that?
Good point. Do you think overall, though, I mean, obviously you're probably answering lots of questions like mine, and the buzz that
Yeah.
ChatGPT has created, I mean, is it overall, not just the buzz, but the technology itself, the advancement, is this a positive thing for the AI space, would you say?
In this case, I think it is. I think, we went through 2017, 2018, where everybody and their brothers, would come up with some AI technology. And at the end of the day, it was a bunch of people, kind of pretending to be the technology. And it definitely gave a bad name to a lot of, to the field, right? I think this is true. This is real. Whatever you're doing is a machine, and it's a kind of unadulterated, if you will. And so I think that the reach into people is now finally making everybody more aware of the possibilities. And I think that that is a definite positive. It's not anymore this kind of like, it's been demystified a little bit, because people are now interacting with it. It's like, oh, okay, that's what AI can really do for me, as opposed to the, believe me, your thermostat has AI inside, and it's, really, I mean.
Now, it's interesting the ways it's already made, and obviously in search with Bing, and now Google following suit, I think, and not just search, but we have a client which would be remiss if we didn't mention for AI, that it's in conversational AI. Diana, do you want to say a few words about what they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're doing some really interesting things in this space, and they just announced and launched their upgraded experience optimization platform version 10. So that allows global enterprises, businesses from SMBs to large corporations to deploy intelligent virtual assistants with minimal training. And they did actually integrate OpenAI's GPT-3, which will simplify the design and development and management of these assistants. They reach all different markets, from healthcare to retail. I mean, they touch on pretty much everything you could think of. And so a conversation that I've had pretty extensively with them is that chatbots previous to my experience with ChatGPT have been almost useless. The first thing, especially in e-com and retail, the first thing you do when you either have an agent on the phone or a chat, you say, I want to speak to a person, right? Because these chatbots can't help you the way that a person could. And that's really the problem that Core AI is solving. Their intelligent virtual assistants can help you the way a human being could. And it's revolutionary, in my opinion. But yeah, so we've been talking extensively as well about how other companies are just integrating GPT-3 and upcoming GPT-4, I'm sure. But another question that you have to ask is, with all of these integrations, is it going to go overboard, is my question, I guess, because we've talked specifically in the AI healthcare space too. GPT-3 or ChatGPT, as far as I know, wouldn't understand the difference between sensitive data that you're feeding it and non-sensitive data. So in the healthcare industry, similar to what Stefano was saying, is, you can't make that mistake, right? If you're going to implement something like this in the healthcare industry, that could be a horrible outcome.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to create all this excitement. It's also, if it creates misunderstanding or leads to problems like you're mentioning, then that's not a good thing necessarily. But meanwhile, we'll keep on experimenting with it. And I think agencies, the tech world, the tech PR world for sure should try to find ways to integrate it into their tech stack. We as an agency are going to come out with a policy in terms of responsible use of this kind of technology. And I guess that should do it. Does anybody else have anything else to add in? Any movies or books to plug, or any? No, seriously, anything else you want to mention on this topic, or anything you're working on that you want to mention?
I mean, excuse me. I'll just mention that my 10-year-old son is really into all of these AI technologies. We were using that Wombo Cloud art generator for a while, And then when ChatGPT came out, I introduced it to him, and he like couldn't get to bed that night. He was so excited.
That's great.
And then he found one that he shared with me called Character AI, where he can have, there's a whole bunch of different characters on there, from fake characters like Scooby Doo or Mario to real people like Elon Musk, and you can have conversations with them. They're like fake
That's
conversations.
wild.
So
That's wild.
yeah,
This is going to be the year of generative AI, I think. Going to continue to create a lot of buzz.
I feel like ChatGPT is really good if you give it the information and you just want it to do something nice with it. Like, here's a lot of information. Can you make me a nice opening paragraph? Or can you, I just can't. I'm not a very good writer. I can't make this flow. Can you help?
I think the question though remains about how do you make sure this is used in the right way? And so, how do you make sure people don't mistake this for an educational tool? How do you make sure people don't mistake this for an expert system tool? And, technology invariably is advancing faster than our society can understand it. And so I think, the people that call for responsibility and for, attention in this field, I think, deserve a little bit more
recognition.
Thank you. That's the right word. I think that we do not understand even though we're unstoppable, we don't understand the full ramification of allowing people to have essentially, unfettered access to a machine that's just generating language and not necessarily, communicating true things. So
yeah,
I think that the word of caution there, needs to be, it's in order.
Well, just go ahead, Mark.
It's getting weird. I mean, I didn't read the story, but I saw a headline either this morning or last night that said something like AI porn is now simple, and that's bad news for women. So, I mean, some of the like that Dolly Mini, if you create, my son and I are always doing dumb things on that, like make Mr. T swim with sharks and eat cheese, nonsense. And it gives you a really warped version of Mr. T. You can tell it's not a real picture, but that's just today. I mean, a year from now.
The question is, are you regressing or is your son advancing? Or both?
Oh, it's a father-son bonding thing.
Through tech, that's a beautiful thing.
But ChatGPT, I've also noticed ChatGPT has some weird quirks. Like, we were trying to get it to do acrostic poems. You know what those are, right? Where there's a word like mother, and then it's mother. Makes me happy, old but nice. There's a line for each letter. Every word we put in, it would do the acrostic poem, but spell it wrong. Like, every one of them, it would just come up with some lines, but the word itself would be spelled wrong. So I don't know, and it doesn't get humor at all. That's one of the most fun things is try to get it to write jokes.
Unforgivable. I mean, it doesn't get sarcasm either, right? And stand for that.
It is fun.
I do think just in terms of like communication and utilizing it in PR, utilizing it for schoolwork, content creation, anything like that, you need a human in the loop, which is another client of ours. Mark and I deal with a company called Zero Eyes. They're an AI gun detection company, and they, don't rely solely on their AI. They have humans in the loop to ensure that the AI is correct. And I think that translates also to this, going all the way back to what we were talking about. You can't just copy and paste what you get from ChatGPT. And, Bob, you're saying that we're going to have maybe not ethics, but just best practices in place, things like that. You need that human being. I don't think it's replacing us anytime soon.
No, to give you a sneak look at our policy, it's going to, not the full thing here, but basically using ChatGPT, I see it as a productivity tool. Doesn't absolve you of the responsibility of fact checking and quality control. You have to have that human in the loop to go in there and make sure it's the right message and it's accurate. But if it saves you time, great. Or if it gives you some inspiration, super. At any rate, I guess that should do it for now. Stefano, so nice speaking with you again. Thanks for joining so much.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
My pleasure, Diana. Mark, thanks for joining. I'll see you on the next Fusion Zoom. And I'll leave information in the show notes, people's bios, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.